MCAT office hours. It is October 14th. It is the spooky season. Dr. Ryan Gray, founder of Medical School Headquarters, author of the Premed Playbook series, host of the Premed Years podcast, and all-around good guy. Joining me today, Petros Manasi, VP of Test Prep and Tutoring at Medical School HQ. You got 25 plus years of MCAT experience, formerly a Kaplan, now living the life at Medical School HQ. How you doing today, Petros?
I'm doing well, Ryan. How are you?
I'm living the dream, as we say. Having fun, as we say. Yes. I'm excited to answer some questions and hopefully spread the good word of the AAMC to our friends. See if we can get some converts along the way to convert some people into the great faith of MCATism. So that's our goal today.
Okay.
What do you think?
Pretty good goal.
Yeah.
And have some fun doing it, right?
Have some fun doing it. If someone gets baptized into a specific faith, what would be the equivalent in the MCAT space to MCATize them?
Getting more questions right? I don't know.
We're gonna Q-bank them into
Q-bank them, or
yes,
problem solve them into something MCAT-y. So
yes, we're gonna MCAT-y them. Yeah. Hello, everyone. We're here to answer your MCAT questions. If you have questions about MCAT timing, MCAT strategy, MCAT, all of that kind of stuff, today's the day. Ask your questions. Petros, tonight you're doing a workshop all about picking the right date. MCAT registration is...
It's a week away.
A week away.
Yeah.
It's a week
away. It's a week away if you're in Zone A. It is a week and a day away if you're in Zone B. And it's a week and 2 days away if you're in Zone C. Zone C is all the international locations, Puerto Rico, Canada. Zone A is the eastern.
Wait, just to clarify, because a lot of people had issues with Bad Bunny being internet. Puerto Rico is a U.S. American.
Yes, it is. I'm not suggesting that it's an international location, but it is in Zone C, which is registration for that opens on Thursday. So next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, depending on where you're testing, not where you live. So I actually spoke to a student yesterday who is right now living in Zone A, but will be testing in Zone B. So her registration opens on Wednesday. So it's where you're going to be testing, the testing center location that you are going to be at. That is key to remember. And it's noon Eastern time on all 3 days is when the registration opens. So if you're in Hawaii or Alaska, it's a lot earlier than noon.
Noon Eastern. All right, so I'm going to share my screen because someone just asked on Instagram, how do I know which zone I'm in? So remember, it's not which zone you are in, it's which zone you are testing in, which could be the same zone you are in. But this is what it looks like. This is the AAMC's website. And so, right, in general, the line of east of the Mississippi versus west of the Mississippi, it's not quite clear or that clear, but that is the map.
That's the map.
And then what's interesting, I mean, it is what it is. I like how Puerto Rico and U.S. territories. Okay. Internationally there. Testing Center C. Cool. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Come tonight, we'll talk about some more specifics as far as choosing the right date and making sure that you're testing at the right time and all those things. But one thing that everybody who is registering next week can do right now, or I guess in an hour once we're done with office hours, is go into the AMC system and set up your account. So register for your account, get all your information in terms of address, all that good stuff, so that you're not spending time doing that when you're actually doing registration. You're just literally get everything set up, get the shopping cart set up so you can pick a test date, pick a testing location, click submit payment, and be done. So you don't have to do all the other stuffs on the day of the exam. So
yeah. So Johnson asked a question here, which I think is going to be top of mind for most students is, hey, I'm going to test in April, so I have lots of time before I need to register. Do I need to register right away? Or maybe even now with the change for this year where October next week, even if you're testing in September, you're still going to register in October, or at least the registration dates for September of next year open next week. Petros, how, let me see how to word this. How many students do you think are affected by not being able to take the MCAT because they didn't register in time?
I can't, there's no stat out there.
There's no data point.
Number. There's no data out there, right?
Yeah.
I can't give you the number. I think it's a very, very small number, quite frankly. How many students are affected that don't get to test on the exact day they want to test, that don't get to test at the exact testing center that they would prefer? That's a bigger number, right? But if you're in a major metropolitan area, there's going to be multiple testing locations near you. So yes, maybe your drive is a little bit more, the commute is a little bit more to the testing center. Maybe you don't test on the Friday, you have to test on the Saturday, right? You prefer the Friday, you have to end up testing on the Saturday, vice versa. Those things will happen. The thing that you have to remember is people grab seats. So one, let me go back a step. You can only hold on to one testing date location at a time. So if I register for the exam on April 5th, I don't know if there's an exam on April 5th, but if I register for the exam that's on April 5th, I can't also register for the exam that's on May 5th and also register for the exam that's on June 5th, and then decide as I get closer.
This isn't a Ticketmaster bot taking up all of the spots.
Right. Yeah, I can't do that. I can't log in on multiple devices and try to grab as many seats as I can. You can hold on to one. So what that means, though, is that lots of people do choose a test date and then change their mind, right? They realize that, okay, I'm going to need to push the test back, or I want to test earlier, whatever it might be. So there's a lot of kind of fluidity that happens after the initial burst of registration, right? Even just like concert tickets, right? It shows that it's sold out, and then the next day there are all these seats available all of a sudden magically, right? And there's no secondary market for the MCAT testing seats. So it's not like you can go to StubHub and pick up an empty seat that's there. But that all being said, so to answer your question, like chances are, if you want to test in 2026, you're going to test in 2026. If you already know, so back to Johnson, to your original question, if you already know when you want to be testing, go ahead and register for it, right? Like, especially if you want to be testing between the January through May, June exam dates, like those earlier ones. If you know that you're going to be testing and you know the date, go and register for it. At least, grab yourself a reasonable spot. If you're testing later in the year, yes, there are going to be some people who in the past, or some population of folks who in the past would have had to have waited for the registration to open up in February for the latter half of the year, that won't have to wait, and they'll be able to grab seats now earlier on. But that all being said, my gut tells me, and I have no data, nothing to support this, but my gut tells me if human behavior is human behavior, chances are, we aren't, planning that far ahead just yet. Some people are, and those people are going to go ahead and register. But, if you're thinking of testing in September of next year, you can, potentially wait. But also, if you know that you want to test in September of next year, just go reserve the spot. Like, that's it. There's no, once you know you're testing and you know when you want to be testing, go grab the spot is what it is.
Go and get it. Stephen asks, I'm a 34-year-old non-trad, no background in the hard sciences. I have 7 degrees in therapy and psych content. So the psych and cars have been cake, but bio and chem phys have been rocking my world. I need practice tests to give me answers right away for immediate correction. So yeah, that wouldn't be a practice test, Stephen. That would just be QBank.
Yeah,
just go do the QBank.
I would take it even one step further back. If you have no background in the hard sciences and you haven't yet taken that coursework, go learn that content, right? Before you're even going into questions, like go learn that content, plain and simple. So you don't have to take a course per se to learn that, or a course in the traditional sense of the word to learn that content, but go learn that content even more specifically. And then as far as getting immediate answers, yes, that is a QBank, or just practice questions as a whole. You don't need 7.5 hour full length practice exams to make those assessments. So you can do that.
Yep.
Practice. But yeah, go get the content. Yeah.
Go and get it. Yeah. Darlene asks general question here. Invitations applied in June 2025. Darlene, invitations have been going. Interviews have been happening. In fact, tomorrow is the official opening of acceptances rolling out for MD schools. So if you haven't yet received any interview invites, potentially meet with our team and figure out why. Or come to pre-med office hours tomorrow and check in as well. White chocolate in December. Would it be okay to send a letter of intent to a school? Blah, blah, blah. Again, another general question here. Pre-med office hours tomorrow would be a great time to ask that. We're focused on MCAT questions today. A letter of intent you do not send to a school that has not interviewed you. Is that an easy answer to that one? Petros, where can students find testing centers? Does the WMC site have a whole list there?
Yes, it does. Let me actually pull up the link for us. I'll post it in the chat. But yes, yeah, do you have it?
Yes, I do. Testing calendar, score release. I thought I did. Where did it go? International testing calendar.
There it is. Sorry, Mike.
Oh yeah.
Copy paste.
Find a center location. Yeah.
Oops. Nope. That's not right. Hold on. Let me delete that.
I tested it. All right. Posted it there. Yeah. So again, I'll share my screen here. It is just a Pearson View testing center. So you search by address and it'll pull up a map. It's funny, it doesn't pull up just a general map. So if I did, let's see, will it auto fill? I just wanted to pull up. Will it just do? Yeah. So it'll just do some locations like that. So it's not, doesn't look like it's the best user interface.
It doesn't, if you put in your home address, it doesn't drop a pin per se where you are so that you can see how easily, how close something is. But
yeah, I mean, this is a crappy interface. Like if I'm moving around on the map, show me new locations. Oh man, come on, Pearson. So I have to go in. I can't just like move the map around and it'll research. Pearson has the same tech platform that LAMC is running on. So again, for this area, and I can't even click on here and it pull up the information. This is horrible.
But it's numbered. So if you look at the list that they gave you,
Petros, I know that.
I'm being sarcastic.
This is 2025, people. This is pathetic. Anyway, that's how you figure it out. You want to click on there, you can't. You have to go over here, and supposedly, this number here corresponds with no number over here. You just have to count down 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, this must be number 4. It doesn't show me number 4 over here. This is the worst pathetic website I've ever seen. I've never played on this website before.
Actually, number 4 is in Foster City, and the 4th one down is in Fairfield, which is across the water. So
that's awesome.
Oh, wait a minute, you had the top one hidden. So the 4th one down is San Mateo. Sorry, I apologize. They got it. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, okay. Sorry, folks. That is what you deal with. Yosef, in my junior year, still taking biochem and physics. Haven't taken microbiology and physics too. Would you recommend scheduling MCAT for next year?
So you're
taking
if you're taking biochem right now, and you're taking physics 1 right now, which is what it sounds like. If you're still taking biochem, okay. So maybe you haven't done the physics 2 part. Don't worry about the microbio. So that one you don't need to worry about at all, because that's not actually directly tested on the MCAT. But for the biochem, if you're taking it right now, you could test in the spring. That would be a possibility. The physics 2, depending on your school and depending on what they cover in physics 2 and when they cover it and when you decide to take it. Excuse me. I tried to hold it. It did not work. Depending on, my apologies. Depending on when you're planning on taking physics 2, potentially you could learn some of the material that you'd be held responsible for in the MCAT on your own before you take the exam, depending on how much material it is and how that would balance in with other stuff that you have going on. So you don't necessarily need to schedule it for next year. But if you're not going to be taking the biochem anytime soon, then I would say you're probably waiting until next year to test.
Yep. All right. Let's see on Instagram. There's a bunch of questions that came in. Is there any MCAT exam center in Africa? Probably. Go to that website and check it out. Oh, here, I'll paste the website into let's see. Apparently there's only one testing site in Africa. Did you know that, Petros?
I did not know that. Where hold on. Let me can I take a guess?
You can guess.
I'll ask a couple questions here. So is it in northern Africa, like on the Mediterranean? Or in a country that's on the Mediterranean? No. Is it in South Africa?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Okay. Why South Africa? That's
my guess would be that Pearson has other exams that are heavily used in South Africa, and that's why they have a testing location there. Yeah. Or administers other exams.
Yeah. Brody just received MCAT score, was not pleased. I'm not pleased with this. Okay. Was planning on a retake, feeling lost, choosing a test day, and don't know where to start in content review, working part-time, etc. Any advice? Yeah, Petros, this is a common reaction to go through the 7 stages of grief as we're getting our MCAT score back. And going, oh crap! Like, what do we do here?
Yeah, I would first ask yourself, what is it that you're not pleased with? Is it you didn't get the score that you were expecting to get because you had been taking? And Brody, without knowing anything, I'm asking these questions. This is really a question for everybody, or like thoughts for everybody. But so, what is it that you're not pleased with? Is it that the score that you got on the actual exam doesn't align closely with the scores that you were getting on your practice exams leading up to the exam, right? So, you're 5 points off or 10 points off, and you're like, what happened, right? So are you not pleased about that? Or is it that you're not pleased with the score because you want to be getting a higher score that you think better reflects who you are as a test taker, better reflects who you are as a student, as an applicant? And then you have to ask yourself, well, what did I do to get to this score, and what is it that I need to be improving on, and what do I wish that I had more of? Do I wish I had more time? Do I wish I had more content review? Do I wish I had more review of questions, of learning actual critical thinking skills, right? All those pieces. Now, your question makes me assume, and forgive me if I'm making this false assumption, that there's some content gaps, because you're saying I don't know where to start as far as the content review. So I'll, in theory, you would have done some content review when you were preparing for the first sitting of the exam, but maybe it's okay, I still need to learn more information. So the place to really start as far as content review is to look back at some of those old practice exams that you took and see, all right, where were those gaps, and start putting your focus there. I say this all the time. So if you've been to one of these before, you've been to an event, you've heard me say this, and I'll say it again. Studying for the MCAT, you got to feel comfortable feeling uncomfortable, right? You can't keep studying the stuff and working on the stuff that you're already good at and expect your scores to improve. If you're already good at something, you need to be working on the stuff that you're not great at. That's where the score improvement, that's where the opportunities lie for you to see the gains that you ultimately want to be seeing. So that's the first area, is, okay, figuring out what do I need to fill in as far as content. But more importantly, what do I then need to fill in terms of actual test taking skills and critical thinking skills and the critical reasoning skills, and making sure that it's not just a matter of I'm doing a lot of work, but that the work that I am doing is efficient work and it's effective work, right? It's not just about being efficient, it's about being effective, right? Is the training that I'm undergoing, whether it's for the MCAT or anything in life, is it actually starting to make a positive impact as far as my performance is concerned? Can I measure that difference? Can I measure that change as far as the performance goes, and tie it back to a set of activities that I have been, adjusting, and that I have made modifications to as I've worked through it. That all being said, once you kind of figure all that out, and you figure out, okay, here's what I need to do, and here's kind of my estimation of how much time it's going to take me. And generally speaking, you'll spend about 300 or so hours studying for this exam in total, but you have to be realistic as far as how much time you can dedicate in a given week. So if you're working part-time, maybe there are other things I'm sure that you're involved in, maybe you're not going to be able to dedicate as much time per week, and that's fine. Once you have all those things, though, then you can go and say, okay, it is realistic for me to think that I'm going to be able to test and give myself enough runway by X date, right? So if you figure out, okay, I'm going to need at least 6 or 7 months because I'm working, I've got other responsibilities that aren't going to let me dedicate as much time to this as I need to, then you realize, okay, I need 6 to 7 months, then that means you're not taking the test in January. It means you're not taking the test in February or March, maybe even April, May is really what we're now starting to look at as far as the test date. So that can help you figure out how to choose and where to choose your test date as far as that timeline is concerned. So it's a little bit of a dance between making sure that you're giving yourself the ample amount of time, and then at the same time analyzing kind of what could you be doing differently and better this next time, so that you are pleased with your score when you retake it. So hopefully that answers your question, Brody, but that's the way to start thinking about it.
Yep. All right. Good question. And each does the 123 cars score raise larger concerns about our readiness for medical schools, or do science section scores carry more weight, assuming they are greater than 128? Anish, there's no easy answer for this. Every medical school has their own criteria and cutoffs and what they're looking for, what they're not looking for. So, yeah, good luck.
Can I say one thing about the car section?
Sure.
Not related necessarily to the weight that it carries as far as admissions, but the beauty of the car section is that it has no science on it, which means it's purely testing you on your analysis and reasoning skills. So that is something that if you want to improve upon just long term, that's the area to kind of be focusing on. That's not necessarily a niche for you, in terms of maybe you're applying with the scores that you have. Great. I'm saying for everybody across the board, those skills are transferable to the other 3 sections as well. So just something to bear in mind.
Yeah. Yep. Anish, just an example that one I give all the time is Emory has language on their website. Anything less than a 124 in any section is considered non-competitive. So just depends. But I know at least one student that's gotten in with a car section of 121. So it all literally just depends. All right. All right, Petros, you want to jump in with your question of the day?
Yeah.
We need some music for that.
We do need some music. Actually, the title of today is some song lyrics. So because it popped in my head as I was putting the slides together. I was like, oh, it's actually something that we have. So general thought, or just general kind of thing to keep in mind, kind of as the preamble for the question we're about to look at, is that the MCAT will love for you to do lots and lots of calculations, right? Something just to kind of be mindful of, or let me rephrase that. They'll try to, force you into doing some calculations. And there are going to be questions on the exam, like the one that we're going to see today, that technically speaking, you do need to do the calculation to get to the precise answer, right? That is like something that sometimes does happen, which leads to this kind of area that is almost verboten at times to mention, in that it's okay on the MCAT to sometimes skip questions. And I say that not because I want everybody sitting there and like skipping questions as they're taking the exam, but there are some questions that if you can identify early on, this is part of the kind of skill of playing the game. If you can identify early on that the question is going to require multiple calculations or potentially the use of multiple different equations in order to be able to answer it, that investment of time on that one question could translate to 4 or 5 other questions that you can go and knock out of the park. And if you have to guess randomly on this one question, fine, right? No big deal. You went and did that. So that's something that oftentimes, unless you're aiming for like the perfect score with every single question correct, right? That is something that sometimes we can actually use to our advantage to triage essentially and say, you know what, this is one where I know that I can do the work in order to get the question right, but I also know that it's going to take me a long time to get the question right. And therefore it might make more sense to do something else and come back to this when I do have more time. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you're studying for this exam and as you're looking through material. I always start with the slide just because it's a great reminder. Namely, this is the core of what's happening as far as the MCAT is concerned, and there is a direct parallel to your future careers, right? They are requiring you to take your prior knowledge, that's all the stuff that you've been studying, all the practice you've been doing, take the new information that's being presented to you in the test, whether it's in the questions or in the passages, put the two together and reason out an answer choice, which is the parallel to a physician reasoning out a diagnosis, right? A physician walks into an exam room with prior knowledge from their years of experience, from their medical training, their continuing medical education. They get new information from the patient because the patient is saying, look, I've got, these symptoms. These are the things that are wrong with me. They order tests, they get more new information, and they put all that together to reason out a diagnosis and then determine what the course of action is going to ultimately be. That's what you're doing on the MCAT, is you're bringing in the two blue squares here, putting them together to reason out that diagnosis. So at the end of the day, it is very much in parallel with what you're going to be doing in the future. So just always remind yourself of that. So here's the song lyric, Ryan. So this is the song for the day. I don't know if you can name that tune, but that's or if you want to sing it.
I can name that tune in 3 notes, Petros.
In 3 notes? All right. So
Put you down on me.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. It's MCAT office hours and entertainment at the same time, right? Is what we got.
Ding, bang, ding, bang.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.
All right, stop.
I think they want to hear about the question, but maybe not. Is what it is. So here's the question, right? It says blood flows through an artery that ascends 20 centimeters from point A, which is near the heart, to point B. At point A, the artery's cross-sectional area is 1 centimeter squared. The blood speed is 0.2 meters per second, and the gauge pressure is 1.2 times 10 to the 5th pascals. The cross-sectional area at point B is 0.5 centimeters squared, assuming laminar non-viscous flow and blood density of 1.05 times 10 to the 3 kilograms per meters cubed. What is the gauge pressure at point B? So we are trying to figure out the pressure. And we see that right away when we look at the answer choices, because the units for the answer choices are in pascals, and pascals, of course, is the measure for pressure. So that's the task that is in front of us. If we wanted to solve this problem and solve this problem in its entirety, there's a lot of work that we have to do. But the good news is they've given us all the information that we need to solve this, except for the equations, except for the formulas, right? That's the only things, I should say, that have not been given to us in this question. They've given us the distance that the artery that ascends 20 centimeters from point A, that's near the heart, to point B. As soon as we hear ascends, does that mean we're going up or we're going down? Just think of it from a very practical. I'm going to walk you through this in a very kind of practical way. If we're ascending, we're going up, which means we're going against gravity, right? We're trying to pump something upwards, which means whatever's happening as far as gravity, which is pulling down, we have to be working against gravity. So that's an important kind of factor to keep in mind. The second part is they tell us these differences in cross-sectional areas, right? They say we've got a cross-sectional area of 1 versus a cross-sectional area of 0.5 centimeters squared. So the cross-sectional area at point B is getting narrower. They don't tell us what's happening to the speed of the blood. They told us the speed of the blood was initially 0.2, but they don't tell us what the speed of the blood is once we get to the new cross-sectional area. But we have an equation for this, right? We have a formula for this. And that formula is the continuity equation, which we'll look at here in a second. But the continuity equation, just as kind of a refresher, and this is kind of the thinking that you have to go through when you're going through the exam, and all of this would be happening very, very quickly in your mind. The continuity equation is it's the product of the cross-sectional area and the velocity, or the speed. There's nothing about pressure in there. So in order to be able to solve for pressure, you're going to need to use whatever output you get from the first equation, from the first formula. You have to use that as an input for another formula. So that's where we have that going on. At the same time, if you're thinking about physics formulas and you're thinking, well, we have a difference as far as height is concerned, right? This blood is flowing through the artery that ascends 20 centimeters from point A to point B. That difference in height, anytime you're trying to measure changes in pressure with differences of height, that should be triggering Bernoulli's equation for you. All right. So these are the two formulas that you're ultimately going to have to use in order to be able to solve this problem. Already from kind of a tactical perspective. So yes, we're going to look through this problem. We're going to solve and get the precise number. But from a tactical perspective, we're already dealing with two pretty complex formulas. The first one, not as complex as Bernoulli's. So you not only need to recall the formulas, but you also need to know where to plug everything in as far as all the numbers are concerned in order to be able to solve out your ultimate number. So the first one, the continuity equation. The continuity equation is the cross-sectional area at point A times the velocity at point A is going to equal the cross-sectional area at point B times the velocity at point B. So as long as you have 3 of the 4 components, you're going to be able to solve for the 4th. But it's also important to recognize that since the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the equal signs are equal to each other, that's what it means when you have an equal sign. So A times V equals A times V. It's just a different A and a different V. So if we think of this from a conceptual perspective, if I increase the cross-sectional area, then that forces me to have a decrease as far as the velocity is concerned, right? So if one is going up, the other one has to be going down. In this case here, we decreased the cross-sectional area, which means the velocity at the new cross-sectional area has to go up relative to the old the old velocity at the old cross-sectional area. So this is really all about plugging things in, right? So we have A sub A times V sub A equals A sub B times V sub B. We're looking for the velocity at point B at that new cross-sectional area. So that is equal to the cross-sectional area at A, which is going to be 1. The velocity at A, which they told us was 0.2, divided by the cross-sectional area at B, which is 0.5. So it is now going to be a case where your velocity has gone up to 0.4. This is not by coincidence, right? You halved your cross-sectional area, which means in order for the two sides to equal each other, you must double your velocity. So the new velocity is double compared to the old velocity, right? That is the connection that's happening there. So we now have the velocity at point B, right? That's what we're ultimately looking at as far as the numbers are concerned. Then once we have solved for this velocity, now we have enough information to use the next formula, which is Bernoulli's equation. Now, I have a very good friend of mine who would joke in college that he was going to get Bernoulli's equation tattooed on his forearm so that he could always bring it into every physics exam that he had. Luckily, he didn't at the end of the day, but he was always joking about it. I think he joked about it so much that it just got to the point that he memorized the damn thing. But Bernoulli's equation is complex, or it's hard, just because there are a lot of different components to it, right? That's literally what makes it difficult. It's not that it's anything major. It's just that there are all these different components to it, and that's what makes it a little bit confusing. So let's just look at the left side, because the left side and the right side are literally mirrors of each other. The only difference is that one says sub A and one says sub B. But Bernoulli's equation, Bernoulli's formula, is helping us solve for pressures, right? So we are given the general pressure, the atmospheric pressure, right? So that's the P sub A that we have, plus 1/2 rho, which is the density of the fluid, times its velocity, plus the rho times g, which is the acceleration due to gravity, times the height, right? The heights that we have. Now, we don't have, from the question, the initial height of A and then the height of B. What we have is the difference in the height. So we can't say that Y is at this distance and B is at this distance per se, and we don't need to. That's the good news. We can just say that A, we'll call that 0, and B is 0.2 meters higher than it, because that's what they told us. It ascends, so it's 0.2 meters higher. So we have the values for Y, for the height. We know the value for G. We were given in the passage the rho value. We have the velocity at cross-sectional area A. We have the velocity at cross-sectional area B. So now we can solve all these things, because we also know that the pressure initially is 1.2 times 10 to the 5th pascals. So we're just really solving for P sub B. Here's the deal, though. This is a lot of work, right? I mean, I can't overemphasize how ridiculous the amount of work it is to solve this problem. I mean, just writing out the formula itself is a ridiculous amount of work. So we want to find whatever efficiencies we can find as often as we can find them. The first one that we can find is that since y sub a is equal to 0, that actually means that the term rho g y sub a is completely eliminated, because you're multiplying by 0, that thing just disappears, right? Plain and simple. What we also know, though, is that, and this is where I want to kind of emphasize this for you from a conceptual perspective, we know that we're going up. So there is going to be a pressure drop as a result of moving upwards, right? Because we are moving against gravity. The pressure, I mean, you take a hose and you point it up versus pointing it down, it's going to have more pressure when you're pointing it down, because you're not fighting against the gravitational acceleration that's pulling you down. So from a conceptual perspective, we know that our correct answer is going to have to be less than what we started off with, which is 1.2 times 10 to the 5th pascals. So if you look, and I'll just go back real quick to the original question here. If you look at the answer choices, we can eliminate answer choice C, because answer choice C is the same. So it's not going to be the same. We know that it's going to be either A, B, or D, which are all less than the original number. Great, right? So that didn't really help us at all. But what we have to take into account, and again, this is all conceptual, is, and just kind of realism, we know that the pressure is going to drop because we're going upwards, but we also know that since the cross-sectional area is getting narrower and the velocity is going to double, if we look at Bernoulli's equation, since this velocity is going to double and you're squaring that velocity, while you might have a drop as a result of ascension, you're going to have an increase by a little bit more, right? Or a lot more than your drop is concerned, or a little bit more than, you're gonna have a drop because of ascension, and you're gonna make up most of it. That's what I wanted to say. You want to make up most of it with the velocity that is going upwards. So we shouldn't be expecting a drop that is as dramatic as 9.9 times 10 to the 4. That is a difference of a factor of 10. Probably not something that is 1.0 times 10 to the 5, because that's still a pretty big drop. And if you actually do the math, that means that you didn't account for the hydrostatic pressure loss. So chances are answer choice D is going to be the good one. So where I'm going with this is, yes, you can calculate it out. You can plug in all the numbers, solve for P sub A, get your precise number of 1.17 times 10 to the 5th pascals. But a question like this, got all this work that's in front of you, you go and say, you know what? I'm going to reason this out. I'm going to say, you know what? I know that it's going to be dropping, but I know I'm going to make up a good amount of that because I'm going to double that velocity, and that is going to add a significant quantity of pressure to me as a result of that change in that velocity. So that's where you end up with answer choice D very specifically with this one. So it's kind of one of those that's like, yes, there are all these steps, but might just be better off to say, you know what, let me use my noggin a little bit and figure out what that gauge pressure is going to ultimately be at.
Let's not use the noggin, because the MCAT is not a test about using the noggin or critical thinking. You just got to know the answer.
You just got to know the answer, right? Just magically open your eyes and you know that it's D, right? So there was someone a very long time ago who, not for the MCAT, but for another entrance exam, they ran a test preparation service, and their whole strategy was for students to look at the patterns of the answer choices and know that, B would never be followed by an answer choice B would never be followed by another answer choice B, and see what the pattern looks like on the Scantron form and all that good stuff. I mean, they were in business for not a very long time because clearly their strategy didn't work, but it was an interesting concept is what it was. They were,
yeah. It feels like I was trying to teach my son rock, paper, scissors the other day. Not that I had to teach him how to play, but teach him some strategy behind it. And visualizing, okay, that person just threw a rock, but they lost to paper. Now they're going to lose to paper. What might they throw next? And he's like, scissors. I'm like, all right, good idea. So what are you going to throw to beat that? He's like, rock. I'm like, all right, there we go. It's just constantly playing this game of what could be. Note to students, there's no science behind that. So don't play that game. But yes. Anyway,
I had a friend in grade school who decided that they were just going to start adding things. So it was rock, paper, scissors. Then he'd be like, "Oh, it's glue," and glue sticks the rocks. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. So
this isn't the Big Bang Theory. No. Rock, paper, scissors, Spock.
Oh yes,
or lizard Spock. There's a whole yeah. All right. What other MCAT questions do we have following that intriguing under pressure? Let's see. I'm still mad about the Pearson website being atrocious. Sydney says, got my score back, went from a 505 to a 512. Thank you for answering my questions and going over concepts every week. Woohoo!
Awesome.
There you go. See, free MCAT prep. That's what we're here for. We increase scores on average by 7 points.
There you go. That's a great stat.
And it's true because on average of 1.
Right. And of 1 is
thank you, Sydney. Yeah. Imagine if our free MCAT prep increased scores on average of 7, what could our paid MCAT prep do? Speaking of which, don't forget tonight's free event, premedevents.com. Let me post a link here directly to it. Premedevents.com. Tonight we have a workshop, how to choose your MCAT exam date. The registration opens next week. So
I'll answer AA's question here.
Yep.
I want to post it up. As far as the time to start prepping for the December MCAT is never, because there is no December MCAT. So you're going to you got to choose whether you're going to test in September of 2026 or January of 2027, because there is no December MCAT exam. So if you're planning on doing summer research in 26, then I would say you're probably going to start prepping sometime in late August, early September, and then you can test in January of 27. So that would be the key there. But yeah, no MCAT in October, November, and December. Those are the 3.
That's when the AAMC takes off, which they do. The big AAMC event is in 2+ weeks. So they're planning their big event where they go and spend all of your hard-earned money that you're donating for the MCAT and ARIS and AMCAS. Last year they rented out the Georgia Aquarium. So that's where that money's going. It's good stuff. Have you been? I forget. I remember texting you while I was there. Have you been to a AAMC, like the AAMC Learn, Serve, Lead?
I've been to plenty.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 It's
some
fun.
Pretty grand events.
Brody, how to tackle bringing up cars when timing is by far the biggest issue. Time is what tanked my score. This is challenge number 1 for most students is finishing the car section.
Yep.
I know this is one of my biggest issues, or was one of my biggest issues, because I'm a very slow reader. I read every single word when I'm reading, and then I'll go, oh shoot, I forget that last sentence I read. So I'll go back and read it again. And then I look up and the section's over and I haven't even finished 3 of the passages. How does
one do that? Let me see if I can get this in the last couple minutes that we have here. But the simple answer is you have to train yourself to become, it's easy for me to say this, to become a more efficient reader. And what I mean by that isn't to become a faster reader. It is, as you are reading, you are asking yourself the question constantly, why the heck has this been written down? Like, what was the purpose? What was the reason that the author decided to include this information? As you're doing that, not going back and trying to reread things to get details. Because I'll give you a very simple example. If I write a paragraph where I say, I want to prove, and I'm going to summarize here, I want to prove this point. And here are the 5 books that I have read that agree with the point that I'm trying to make. And I list out the names of those 5 books. Doesn't matter what the names of the 5 books are. The purpose of the paragraph was for me to give you evidence for why the point that I'm trying to make is true. It doesn't mean that my point is true. It just means the purpose of the paragraph was for me to try to convince you that I have my solid reasoning about why something is true, and I gave you evidence behind it. You take note of that, and then when you go to the questions, you let the questions dictate to you whether or not you need to actually use that information from the passage. That being said, a great study tactic that you can do as far as reading is concerned is it's like anything else. It's like training yourself. Try to read the passage in half the amount of time that you normally would and see how many questions you can get right, and keep forcing yourself to do that to a point where you're able to get, let's call it 75% of the questions right. And then you can slowly start to slow down and get yourself back to kind of the normal pacing. That way it's a mind trick, but you're forcing yourself to try to do the thing as efficiently in half the amount of time, which means you will start to, and this will work. You have to practice it though. You can't go and do it on the day of the exam. You will start to naturally select out the stuff that you don't need to overemphasize on or overread. So Ryan, to your point, if you want to read every word, yeah, you're still going to read every word, but you're not going to try to sit there and comprehend every single word or comprehend the structure of the sentence. You trick your mind into becoming the more efficient reader, where you're just like, okay, I'm able to still pull out the same amount of information without getting bogged down in all the words. And then you save that time for the questions, which is where the points are. So cars and the science sections, all the passage sections, here's my nerdy analogy for the day, or nerdy connection for the day. It's like ATP production. There's an investment phase and then there's a payoff phase, right? So you're kind of in that investment glycolysis phase. You're reading the passages, and then you're in the payoff phase, the oxidative phosphorylation phase, when you're getting questions, getting them right. So getting the points.
Get those points. That's the goal. I be like, Arby's, we got the meats. I'm like, we got the points.
MSHQ MCAT prep. We've got the points.
We got the points. Yes. All right, family. AA. Do not do things that you think will stand out on an application because you think they are quote unquote unique. Nothing is unique, and art therapy probably not clinical experience. So yeah. All right, friends, as a reminder, we're here almost every single Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, answering your MCAT questions. Wednesdays, we are live with our advising team at 1 p.m. Eastern, answering your pre-med questions. Tonight, Petros, you are doing a how to choose your MCAT exam date workshop. Go to premedevents.com to check that out. If you are looking for some MCAT help, whether that's tutoring or in the future, anything else, you can go schedule a consult call with Petros over at medicalschoolhq.net, as well as our one-on-one advising that we do with students. You can check that out. We'll help you with your essays and interview prep and school lists and all that good stuff. So come hang out with us. And if not, come hang out with us and we'll do free stuff with you too. So Petros, thanks for hanging out today.
Thanks for having me.
Any last words of wisdom? Because next week when we meet, registration will be open.
It will be open. Last words of wisdom for this week will be go set up your AMC account so that your registration goes nice and easy and you get the test date that you're looking for, and come to the workshop tonight so that you can get all your questions answered around that. I know I've been speaking to a lot of students this week, and I know people are panicking about it. It's nothing to panic about. You will get a test date. You will get a testing location. It's just a matter of staying calm. I guess here's the word of wisdom that I will share, or the story of wisdom that I will share. MCAT registration can feel like a crazy thunderstorm, and there's going to be a lot of rain. And if you're on one side of the street at one building and you need to go to the other side of the street to another building, there are two ways that you can cross the street. All you have with you is a piece of newspaper, so you are going to get wet. So you can put the newspaper over your head and try to shuffle across the street and look kind of funny doing it. You're going to get wet. Or you can calmly walk across the street. You're still going to get just as wet, is what it comes down to. So stay calm, move forward. It'll all work out. We'll see you at the event tonight.
And there you go. Goodbye, everybody.